Welcome back to The Loop, your weekly dose of all things property management. I'm your host, Colin Stewart, and each week we're going to dive into the latest trends, strategies, and stories shaping the property management world. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just getting started, we're here to provide insights, expert interviews, and practical tips to help you navigate the ever-evolving landscape of property management. In today's episode, I sit down with Kyle James, the founder of one of the fastest growing vacation rental management property companies in Colorado. Kyle's going to share how he built the business from managing a handful of homes to hundreds of properties across Denver and Vail without taking outside funding. We dive deep into how his team is approaching AI-first operations, automating the schlep of property management while still preserving the human touch that hospitality depends on. Kyle, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Colin. That was quite the intro.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm happy you're here. I'm really excited. Anytime I get a chance to kind of talk about kind of the blending of AI and prop tech and like the human touch, I always get a little bit excited. I do want to start with, maybe before we get into the techier side, talk to me about, building Atomic Vacation Rentals and not taking on outside funding.
I didn't start the business really to grow it into what it's become today. I started it more as a path to build a team that could manage my own personal investments. As we grew, I found that I find building business maybe even more fun than investing. And so we really started to lean into that direction. One of the hardest parts, I think, about growing a property management business, especially in the short-term vacation rental space, is that it is a 24/7, 365 business, no matter if you have one property or 200 properties. And so there comes this point that I like to kind of call the swamp when I'm referring to it, between maybe 20 properties and 85 properties. It gets really hard. Around that point, I actually met my now co-founder, Zach Campbell. And so he had started a separate property management company. We were both kind of in that period of about 65 properties or whatnot. We decided to come together and merge the businesses. That really gave us a big head start. At the time, we each have one or two employees. Kind of everyone was doing their jack of all trades jobs. And that is great when you're getting started, but it is very hard to scale that way. There just needs to be so much more organization, which is where we'll get into some of the technology aspects. But even without the technology, your people have to be organized. People have to know what they own in your business. And so as we grew, that kind of merging really allowed us to start to focus on this as a true business where we have different siloed aspects of it. And today, now we're sitting around 250 properties with about 15 W-2 employees, another 70 1099 contractors.
Totally. Is there a specific time or day when you started to realize like, oh, this is a real thing? Like, oh, this isn't going to collapse and explode. This is a real sustainable business that's going to be around for a while.
Yeah, I think I probably felt that a lot for a few years now. But to be frank, I try and keep the mindset of not getting comfortable, especially when we talk about all these things that are coming about with AI. When we're talking about our competitors, I think about the companies that we're competing with in Vail. We have kind of two sides of the same coin in Vail, where on one side, our competitors are Vail Resorts, Berkshire Hathaway, these massive, massive corporations. And then the other side, there's some really amazing small operators in both Denver and in Vail that are pushing the edge on AI. They're pushing the edge on how do we lower costs for our clients? How do we raise awareness on the marketing side, all while lowering our fee? And so, while in many ways, I feel that we're very stable and things are going well and we're constantly pushing the envelope, I think that today, if you're deciding to take your foot off the pedal, it probably couldn't be a worse time to do that. Every industry, in my opinion, is going through massive changes with these AI revolutions. And as that happens, to say this is when we're going to take a vacation, to me seems like a kind of, maybe not a death sentence, but we're going to treat it like a death sentence.
It's not a good time to fall behind.
I believe so. I mean, and not only is it not a good time to fall behind, what an exciting time to move forward. And so there's kind of that double-edged side where it's like, we're not even thinking about taking our foot off the pedal. That was just kind of from your question. But more than that, what an amazing time to take advantage of some of these new tools and drive forward and figure out how we are going to level ourselves up. So we're not even really looking at it as like a bad time to take our foot off. It's more of just an exciting time to drive forward. And I think you're crazy not to take advantage of some of these opportunities being provided.
Totally. I mean, I think any salesperson will tell you when everything is status quo, when like all the competitors are the same and nothing's really changing, those are kind of the worst environments to sell in. But everything is changing and there's so much new opportunity being created. I mean, that's an exciting time to be an entrepreneur, a great time to be a salesperson carrying a quota for an AI products company.
Absolutely. And I think that, similarly, just to talk a little bit more micro to our markets, it was a
Hmm.
terrible ski season in Vail. That combined with just kind of more maturing of the short-term rental market has caused for a lot of operators to have a little bit of unease. A lot of operators are getting, you'll see right now that there's a huge amount of transition between acquisitions, roll-ups happening in our industry, kind of these smaller operators being bought out. And I think that's in part due to a lot of fear in the marketplace, in part due to a maturing industry, and then for us specifically, in part due to a terrible winter season and some recency bias. And so, not only are we excited about the future, we ended up buying two small operators this year to grow ourselves even faster. So we are highly bullish on what the future of the vacation rental industry looks like if you treat it a certain way.
I love that. It does kind of seem like there are going to be businesses that know how to AI and those that don't. And there will be this kind of forking in the road of like, have nots. I don't want to say have nots because I don't think it's the cost of AI is so unsustainable, but there certainly is a learning curve to it. I imagine it was a similar transition when things started to get SaaSified, and like maybe Airbnb kind of came onto the scene and there was those that got it and those that didn't get it.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, our industry is I think that's the fun part. That's what allowed for this. To take a step back on kind of why I got into this industry, when I started looking into real estate investing, if you look at an industry, although the short-term rental industry is mature, it's nowhere near as mature as the long-term rental industry or even the assisted living industry or kind of all these other asset classes within real estate. And so one of the things that I looked for when I wanted to start by investing in real estate was where is a place that I can make kind of a unique difference. And so what I'm getting at here is that the short-term rental industry, I think, is really changing constantly. And this SaaSification, this AIification are things that have created both opportunity and barriers to entry for people like myself trying to get into an industry like this. And so I feel lucky because I feel like if there wasn't all that change, there'd probably be a much older business that had a lot bigger market share that was harder to break into. So for us, that type of SaaSification, that type of AIification, these needs to change have really allowed for us to come in and be at the have some differentiators rather than just these older, larger companies being able to sit on their laurels and talk about how big and how rich they are. They have to also move forward, or that gives us some area to differentiate. And it started with SaaSification and some of these different tools. I mean, there was years where if you look at the Vail Resorts market, or just the Vail town of Vail market for a long time. There was no, and in many markets, but I guess what I'm getting at, there was no SaaSification. So these big businesses, they also had the books of guests. And so you really had to work with a Berkshire Hathaway or Vail Resorts or some of these large companies because they had the guests in a literal phone book. And so then
Mhm.
they were similarly able to charge these massive rates. And now one of the things that has kind of leveled out is no matter how much marketing these companies are doing, Airbnb is going to be doing more marketing. VRBO is going to be doing more marketing. So if you can create a great product and utilize the marketing of some of these sites, and
Mhm.
don't get me wrong, I believe in direct booking and we retarget, but if you can just have the best product and the best service, you really get put on an easier playing field with some of these SaaS products than it used to be.
So Kyle, I'm curious, maybe just you don't have to share the name of the vendor, but I'm curious, is there an off-the-shelf AI tool that really fell short for you?
I think in general, I don't know if I would say it fell short, but I think we are still figuring out the guest communication piece. There's many tools that have tried to come in and deal with guest communication on behalf of vacation rental companies. And can they share the Wi-Fi code? Absolutely. The hard part becomes a couple areas. When it gets more complex in terms of information and where to get that information, I find that a lot of these tools currently connect to your PMS, but they don't connect to your Notion or your Monday.com or your Supabase or your Neon or wherever you really have kind of this main amount of information. And so they're really subjected to just what's in the listing or the back end of the listing. And so I think that overarchingly is something that will have to change if these companies want to improve. There are some good options right now, but just for what's available to them. And then the second part of that is the ability to call vendors, to coordinate, to go back and forth has not been something I've been able to see yet. And so I kind of wonder There are some off the shelf products that are talking about moving towards that more AI partner. How do we integrate into your business rather than just being something that sits beside it? And I'm excited to see where that goes. I also think there's a world where the best option may end up being that we build that ourselves internally. And so that's kind of the debate we're looking at right now is like, how do you really tackle this beast? And the reason we talk guest communication so much is because there's just so much information flow. So it seems like a high ROI piece to help with. Not to mention, I don't know if you've ever talked to anyone who does the actual boots in the ground guest support. I'm sure you have. I just saying that to say when you talk to them, nobody like they love when they get to make a guest stay. They love when they get to call them and the guest is happy or they get to drop off that bottle of wine. But the coordination of a guest service agent is massive. It's an entire day of moving information from here to there, putting out fires, dealing with this person, helping them, coordinating somebody's ride because somebody's grandma made a different flight than them or this or that. And there's a million things going on. And so for me, I look at too, when you have that type of stressful job, it's going to lead to higher turnover, which is really something we're trying to avoid because I think that having familiarity with the homes, having familiarity with the clients is so helpful. And so when I look at that too, I look at, man, this guest communications piece becomes so important because if we can take that pressure off them, we're going to have a better work environment. We're going to have a better culture. Our guests and clients are going to have a better experience, and we're just going to be faster. And so the guest communication is a tough piece. There's a lot of companies working on it, and I don't think anyone's nailed it yet.
Interesting. On the flip side, what's been so far the most valuable AI automation you're using today? It could be using Manus for a specific thing. It could be Claude for a thing. It could be a tool. But I'm curious, yeah, what's in your mind? What's the most valuable?
There's many that we're close that would probably take, if we can figure them out, they'll be more important than this. But one that, just because we're learning so much right now, still we're in the learning phase. But one thing that we have done that has been amazing is that my business partner was able to utilize Claude Code to integrate with our accounting platform, and to integrate with our PMSs. And so we have a real, we have no plans to sell our business, but you should always build a business in the light of what does somebody want to buy down the road. And I firmly believe that because the reason that people say that isn't to just give yourself the option. The reason people say that is because these industry standards are in a place because of years of back and forth of what is the most ideal company to buy. And so that's also going to be the most ideal company to drive profit. It's going to be the most ideal company to lower churn rate. It's all the things you want to do in your business anyway. And so we took those gold standards of churn rate, take rate, EBITDA, anything that really affects our business. And we were able to put them into a dashboard and we were able to integrate that with our different portions of the business. And so now every single day I can open up the dashboard and see where we're trailing or where we're headed and forecasting from profit to our churn rate to our review score and how that's trending. And so the overarching view that I can see on the business and keeping a pulse on such a massive business with so many moving parts, that alone has been so key for our ability to make decisions.
Unbelievable. Yeah. I mean, having your accounting, having your customer support, customer success, all those platforms pushed into one UI where you can just talk to it and say, hey, I want a dashboard of this, or tell me about my EBITDA for that. Incredible.
And I would actually say that is something that everyone can do because we didn't hire a company to do that. And we aren't AI geniuses. We just utilized Claude Code and a couple late nights. And it's been a massive change. And it's something anyone can do today. The dashboarding today is something that I think is really powerful, even before you start to get into AI first businesses.
Kyle, I really appreciated having you on the show. I feel like we could have gone on for another hour. Thank you so much. If people want to learn more about Atomic Vacation Rentals, what's the best way for them to reach out, or where should they go do some more research?
Yeah, atomicstays.com has actually all of our information. You can even email me from there. I love to hear from people, whether you're reaching out to ask a question to me directly or about our company or anything like that. We love to be part of our community. So reach out.
I love it. Kyle, thank you so much for coming on the show. And thanks to everybody for listening. We'll catch you all next time.